Here we go. Wait, a little link adjustment. Surprise look, because someone says I always look surprised when the live stream starts. And it's because I'm always surprised when the live stream starts. Welcome to Vlog Thursday number 435, which is me and some friends. I was hanging out at the MSP Geek event the last couple days, which is also where that video came from that was recently posted. That was my talk I did at MSP Geek. So I'm not going to say 100% recovered. There's a lot that it takes out of me going to an event, and I enjoy every minute of it. Matter of fact, I have very shortened sleep schedule, very expanded social schedule. So when I get back, I crash a little bit because you gotta contract a little bit from it, or at least I do. But it was a great time. My voice is coming back. It's much better than it was. I couldn't talk much yesterday, but awesome to see all of you here. We were discussing with a few people, and I have a friend who's also diving into some of the YouTube things. He's actually does a ton of public speaking. And I said, why aren't you publicly speaking on YouTube as well? So I have friends that are diving into it, and I'm always encouraging to keep them moving forward on it. So definitely fun stuff. Hey, how are you, Bearded IT Dad? Good to see you here. The talk went well. So that was happy stuff. I failed to take a selfie at the talk. I don't know. I forgot. I usually try to take a selfie and I'll post it, but that didn't happen because I forgot. But there were a lot of people there, and people took pictures of me. So there's evidence I did the talk. I am doing well today. Oh, that's right. It's beer 30 over there in the UK. So awesome. Curious what kind of beer you poured. So lots of hellos to everyone. I am doing lots of things. What do we put in a title? Networking, storage, and Homelab. Perfect. I didn't think I gave Matt a single specific item, which is...
We kept it amazingly generic. It was basically star. You're good to go.
Star. No agenda. I'm going to then share my screen. I was actually working on this right up until I started MikroTik. You know, I've been wanting to do some videos on it. I just kind of started poking at it. I had a used MikroTik that I'm holding the reset button and it still does nothing, which means the next step is got to go to the console. I have more than one MikroTik. This one's working. This one runs Switch OS. And I know a lot of you have been asking about some MikroTik videos, so I want to make a few. I think because I think this is where the decision point comes in a lot. Actually, hold on. My lights are turned on way too bright. There we go. But I know a lot of people are looking at them, and there's going to be a lot of opinions on MikroTik. And I've not heard of this beer, but also that beer is Angelo. I'm going to say that name. Angelo Poretti. I've not had Italian beer. I've had a few European beers. We have a few places to bring them in here from time to time. So maybe I'll go look for that one today. I like to randomly try new things. So after the vlog, maybe it's pizza and beer time. But back to the MikroTik. You said check out I'm allowing myself to easily get distracted here. Homelab Explorers. It's a new community for the Homelab I just joined. I don't know if I have time to join another community, but I do encourage all of you to do so. So I don't know anything about these Homelab Explorers or where you find them or if it's a website, but very cool. I like that there's more communities around this as a topic. I was recommending even in my talk, like people go to Reddit r Homelab or 45 Drives Homelab or lots of Homelab places, including my forums, where you can find Homelab information. There's a lot of different communities out there. Some of them, of course, are more niche. There are niche communities for specific things, including MikroTik. What I wanted to start with is maybe do a video on getting started with Switch OS. And I've done a video on it before, and it seemed to make people happy. And I might do a couple other videos. And I'm just going to cover like the general things a lot of Homelab or basic setups would entail setting up a MikroTik switch. And I think just by showing the interface, it may be a deciding factor where people go, that's amazing, or go, oh, that is not what I would like to manage, especially if I show a couple different MikroTiks and how you manage more than one and how you have to define the VLANs. And I'm not here to try to tell you to use UniFi, but I am going to say when you show how complete the UniFi interface is by compared to MikroTik. Now, someone's going to point out, but the MikroTik can do more things. Yeah, but do you need those more things? This is the question all the time. And people looking for a more basic setup, I will do some comparisons between directly MikroTik and UniFi. And I will always say there is no doubt, and I can begin any video topic like that. Absolutely, you're going to find more functional features in a MikroTik, which is something I think is great. But that is also, do you need those particular features? And if you have a dozen switches, how do you want to manage them all? I got to dig a little bit more into the MikroTik ecosystems. I think they have some tooling for managing stuff, and someone will point out that I believe you can configure these with Ansible, but not the Switch version. I believe Switch OS is designed to be run only through the basic web interface, but the router OS is much more powerful, but of course, at that same time, much more confusing. Yeah, and this is kind of why I think it's helpful in two ways. It's helpful because I want to, for people that want to get started with MikroTik, I'd like to offer a resource for that because it's not a terrible product. It's just a little bit more confusing, and it's, especially if you're using router OS, a little bit more command line driven. But that also can be the reason that people look at it and go, oh, I shouldn't buy this product because that's a lot more work than I want to spend configuring it. And maybe people would like to go and buy something else that is easier for them to configure. Yeah, you can build out tools. And this is like anything. I mean, all these things run Linux under the hood. Technically, if you didn't like the UniFi interface, you can SSH in and build your own, and it's running Linux. So it all depends on how DIY you want to go. Oh, you weren't able to make it to MSP GeekCon. Yeah. There's nothing. Yeah. I believe probably all the major companies are. It's hard to find a company not doing the. Why is my phone doing this? I'm trying to mute my watch, and it's decided it doesn't want to accept commands. I was just trying to. Yeah, I don't need this. Stop. Do not disturb. There we go. All right. Do not disturb. That button. I didn't find. Maybe I got to look to see if it's fixed an update. I use a Garmin watch. I really like it, except I wish there was a way to double tap and do like do not disturb, but there's not. I normally want it on unless I'm doing something like a live stream or I'm on a call with a client. I want it off, and it's like a multiple steps to be able to do that. I think that's annoying. It should be like one step. Do not disturb. Watch. All things should be that. Oh, Adam Savage is I should have been watching Adam Savage's live stream. Adam Savage is an amazing person. He does so many cool things. Definitely a big fan myself. I watch not all of his videos, but a lot of them. I like when he's going through. He's a lot of passion, a lot of cool builds. Definitely one of those premier makers out there that just great for the community too. But back to some of the MikroTik stuff. I try to figure this out because one of the problems I've run into, and I could reboot this into router OS. And I have a feeling the other one, I got to plug a console port in, I think, to figure it out. The other one too is a bigger model MikroTik, but I believe someone has disabled the reset button because holding the reset button is not resetting it. It does get an IP address, but it does not pull up any interface. And it's kind of annoying because I don't know exactly what. And I did realize, because I don't think I changed this, I did have this one. I just rebooted it back to Switch OS. When I have this in router OS, I noticed that it seems to, and I believe these are all the default settings, it says that the reset button is disabled, which is kind of annoying to have the, factory reset button disabled. I might do a factory reset, and because there's two factory modes this has. So this is Switch OS, and then you can reboot it into router OS. So if I go here, and it's probably small, but we'll put it down on the screen here. You see at the bottom where it says I can boot into router OS. When I boot into router OS, it also breaks the reset button. Actually, here's the reset configuration. Oh, that just actually resets it. But yeah, there's an option, and it seems to be it's set to on inside of this. It's making me wonder if the other one is set to router OS, not switch OS, because it supports both as well. And I wonder if it's got the reset button disabled. The reset button doesn't seem to do anything. It certainly doesn't reset it to factory defaults. Yeah, and that's kind of the problem with some of the MikroTik is there's just a lot more configuration to them. I'm considering buying into the enterprise campus UniFi gear for the company I work for. Do you also consult with companies located in Germany? We can do a limited amount of consulting because there's some trickiness to making sure we comply with all of the German laws. So reach out to us, and yes. Can you reboot into router OS and keep the config? No, the configuration for switch OS and router OS is 100% separate. It's like a partition on there, and it boots one or the other, but there's not anything the same about them. So any configuration you do in one doesn't transfer over to the other, to my knowledge. Last time I tested that, they were completely separate. And as far as I know, this one seems completely separate because I had to set a password for router OS, and I'm able to leave this without a password. So I don't think there's any way to copy the configuration between the two. You should do a video about GPON SFP. The problem is I can't, because I don't have any need for GPON SFP because it's not available. There's not a provider here that's got a hookup where I can do that. So it's a video I can only do in theory. I can't do in practice because I don't have a GPON system to be able to test it with. Yeah, I believe this is true what this person's saying here. Switch OS and router OS have two separate factory defaults. If you are completely locked out, use net install. Yes, switch OS is definitely for the simpletons because it is way, way more basic. The switch OS is not near as featureful as the router OS. Really appreciate your work and effort. Thank you very much. I appreciated the thing here. Come on, you know what? I'll just have to go over Beard IT Dad. We'll have to hang out and do GPON. Or perhaps the Beard IT Dad should do some GPON videos. He's in the ISP space. He is well suited to know a whole lot about it. Maybe we'll have to collaborate on this. So reach out to me. We haven't chatted in a while, and we'll talk about it because I think it's a good topic. New to Homelab, working on my first Proxmox system, OptiPlex 3010. I have 3 thin clients going in to try a cluster with the 3010. Do you prefer Proxmox clusters or Kubernetes? I don't use Kubernetes or Proxmox, so whichever one works for you. Kubernetes is fun. I had a slide where I kind of dogged a little bit on Kubernetes because if you're start saying I'm new to Homelab, I don't think that sentence should end with Kubernetes. And I mean, if you're up for the challenge, awesome. If you're not someone who gets easily discouraged, fantastic. But the Kubernetes is the deep end of the pool. It's a great tool. You don't get really big, large, super scaled providers like Google without Kubernetes. But with that comes complexity. You can always follow the next and yes steps to, follow this guide, put these commands in, get Kubernetes. The problem becomes the breakage that happens when it updates. And I've mentioned before, and will, of course, again mention the Reddit write-up. Reddit went down for 12 hours. Why? Well, they did a debrief called Kubernetes is Hard. There's nothing wrong with it, but, it depends on what you want to learn and what you want to do. I just don't bother with it. It's just nothing I need. I'm happy with my Docker containers. Back to the virtualization question, though. I prefer XCP-ng over Proxmox, but Proxmox is fine if that's what you want to use. So if it were me and I would only have those two choices, I'd probably build a Proxmox cluster first. I will keep my switches in switch OS router. Router OS is too conflicted with bridges and stuff for switches. Yeah. It's a lot more. My UniFi switches will not power my MikroTik devices. Have you experienced issues? I am currently powering my MikroTik device by my UniFi switch. So no, I have not. I've used them, never had a problem with them. We've used quite a bit of UniFi PoE, and I've always found it very compatible and very functional. Come this side of the Mississippi, we'll have some fun. All right. Just got approved for the UniFi Ambassador Program. Awesome. After your video on UniFi CGF, I get one of those UniFi some pros testing, but still runners running in circles. If you know what to do, and I kind of, yeah, I mean, it's way different using the router OS on MikroTik. It's just got more features. It's a very full featured OS. There's no doubt. Oh, yeah, you're glad that TrueNAS finally saw the light and got rid of Kubernetes and went to Docker. Yes, they did. I want to build an AI server GPU. Probably don't have the room for a 42 rack. Can I get a smaller one or 27 or just build a headless desktop? I don't even have mine in a rack right now. Mine's just in a custom case, if you will. So there's definitely solutions like that work. So I just have a custom case, not even a custom case. I can't remember what the name of it is. It's not, I've probably shown it before. It's one of those open cases, and I'm not even have it fully assembled. It's just a lab bench thing. So, but yeah, it may be harder to rack mount, so you may just have to figure out how to do that, like how to fit it in some other type of casing. I would love to see lag and MLAG and MikroTik. Saw a couple of videos of nothing recent, and no one ever talks about tester performance. Well, from a switching standpoint, there's not a lot to it. Like there's not a reason to test it because it does 10 gig switches do 10 gig. So I'm not sure what the benchmarking would be. They do support lag, and a lot of models do support like the MLAG, but it's all command line driven. And I believe I don't believe there's any options to do that in Switch OS. And I don't believe there's even a interface option because I looked at a couple write-ups because that was one of the things I wanted to buy a couple MikroTik switches for. And all the command setups are command line. And that's actually something that probably doesn't need a new video because I'm willing to bet it hasn't changed over the years. Have you ever used an AP for MikroTik? Works nice to see them provisioning a lot faster. But how do you manage if you have about 20 of them? You built a cube lab, but you do prefer Docker. Yeah, that's me. I don't have any reason to use Harvester. It seems incomplete compared to XCP-ng. I've mentioned this before, and this is a YouTube comment that someone just had today of wanting me to review more things. I'm like, I wish I had all the time in the world to review all the things in the world, but I do more tutorials than I do reviews. So I'm choosy about when I will put the time and effort into reviewing something. In order for me to review a device, that device has to be compelling and interesting enough that I want to review it based on the device I currently use. So I have a device that has, let's say, feature A, feature B, feature C, and then the other device has only 2 of those features. Well, that makes it less interesting. Where's the advantage to using it? And people are like, but I just want to try something different. I'm like, well, you can try something different. But when I look at something, and I will bring this up about Harvester, people keep asking about it, but I look at it and go, it doesn't seem to have as many features as Proxmox or XCP-ng. So it doesn't compel me to make me want to try it because I don't know what the advantage to using it is over something that's more feature complete, especially when you're talking about the price of Proxmox is free. The price of XCP-ng is free, and the price of Harvester is free. So anything not free is my time. So I try to figure out where, what does it do that's so amazing that I'm missing out on? And if someone can tell me what the killer feature is, that is a feature that matters to me or to, has an interesting use, I'm actually willing to test those things. I've had to hold the reset in while plugging in the power cord to get fully reset. Yeah, that's what I did. And that's when it didn't. Well, it did something because it reset and gets an IP address now. I just can't access anything on it. So it seemed to do something, but I don't know. I don't know if I just didn't wait long enough the first time because it didn't show an IP address. And that's when I held the, powered it off, plugged it in while holding the reset button. And I held the reset button in for 60 seconds. Maybe I got to hold it in longer. Appreciate your work on UniFi. Awesome. Happy to working for you. What do you recommend for self-hosted DNS? Almost always I've just used my firewall. I haven't really had if I was going to host it out on the internet, I imagine Bind is probably still the most popular one out there. But for internally self-hosted, pretty much all the time I'm doing whatever's built into the firewall. I know someone's going to want Pi-hole, and that's fine too. Super sticker. Awesome. Thank you. I am pushing MikroTik for 5 years. Finally do real firewall, a full DPI. They have a complete product line. Well, that's cool. Managing done for the wireless package or wireless 2 package, you can install it on a switch and wireless AP. Interesting. Hey, Brett. I hope more users push for this. Like I'm assuming you're making more people push for MikroTik. Maybe. I don't feel their ecosystem is near as polished as UniFi, but in some markets, maybe because their budget might be better, or UniFi might work. Can we just ask anything? Of course. If so, radius for splitting VLANs into a single SSD with a few shared using as a password, essentially like PSKs. Am I missing something apart from complexity? Correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll have to look this up, but I believe, doesn't the radius splitting for VLANs break with the latest version? Once you go with the latest Wi-Fi 7, if I'm not mistaken, that feature goes away. And someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that one. Because I remember seeing it, and I'm like, that's novel. But then I was like, oh, once you go to WPA3, I believe it doesn't work. Someone let me know if that's wrong. It's been a minute since I've looked into that. Can you review the latest Slate truck? Maybe. So have them park one in my driveway. I'll take a look at it and I'll consider it. ZFS rate amplification. Keep seeing this, but never really had a problem with SSDs. Is it really a concern? Not really. I don't think it's much of a problem. I believe one person did a video on this recently, but SSDs work with ZFS. I don't think there's a particular issue that makes SSDs worse for ZFS overall. But when it comes to certain storage mediums, like if you want long-term video archive, it still might be better to store them on spinning Rust. Actually, who has done some good discussion on this is Steve Gibson. And it's not just directly related to ZFS. It's about how the charge fades. This is the last episode of Security Now. I believe it's the last episode. It's either the last one or the one before that. But the problem comes down to the way SSDs work. There is a charge that we would like to set inside of an SSD. And, we're setting the ones and a zero. Well, the way you're setting or removing that charge is you're breaking the barrier of that. So over time, you can possibly wear out that barrier because you're exploiting the physical nature of being able to push or set a 1 or a 0 and charge or discharge a specific tiny little cell. The other problem is when you set that charge, it can fade over time. And so those are the bigger concerns with SSDs, more so than like a ZFS concern. Which device are you having trouble resetting? Let me get the exact model. Let me grab it. And it has a console port on it. So this is a CRS 317 1G Whoops. We'll do it this way. So there we go. CRS. Oh, come on, focus. CRS 3171G 165 plus. And holding the reset button in, I mean, it's getting an IP address now, but it's not getting it's not letting me access it. I don't know. It's got a console port. I'll just plug in the console port and see what's on the screen. Make sure this is a functioning. It was in our used rack of things at work. I was told that they're pretty sure it worked. That was the answer. I said, does that work? They go, I'm pretty sure. No, it's a mystery box that was just in our pile of stuff. Yeah, I looked at the guide to reset it and it blinks. So I assume it resets, but I still can't get into it. Do you have any clients using Tailscale in the enterprise opposed to the traditional VPN like WireGuard? We don't really have any clients using traditional WireGuard VPN unless it's just for site to site. No one in their right mind, and there's plenty of people not in their right mind, but no one in their right mind is just trying to use WireGuard raw on, managing it. Someone actually was telling me, hey, we have about 30 users and we're finding it kind of tedious to manage WireGuard keys. I'm like, I would too. That's not the way to do it, to go set up individual WireGuard keys and clients on each one. Generally, WireGuard is a great protocol. It's not great for user management. So there's almost always Tailscale, NetBird are a couple two popular ones out there. I just was hanging out with NetBird over at the event I was just at. They're great people. Tools that manage WireGuard are popular because WireGuard doesn't really have any good management tools. Probably going to try and pick up the USO Pro aggregation switch to bring 10 gig in the studio. Awesome. Okay, it still does work on WPA3. I'll have to look because maybe it could have been a limitation of one of the devices I was testing, because I just remember when I went in there. Okay, so WP breaks it when using a pre-shared key. Because one of the devices, I can't remember if it was what brand I was using, that feature, it would warn you when you turn on WPA3 that feature wasn't available. And I don't know if this is a function of that device or. You're a ruckus and APN switches. Wanted to confirm that you mentioned a few times previously, licensing can't be purchased directly and can be a bit confusing. Hardware is fantastic. Yeah, this is what hurts most of these other companies on the Homelab market and the bigger market, is they either require a resale agreement or they just have confusing licensing or expensive licensing. Yeah, I think it was Electronics Wizardry. That sounds like who did the video. He's done a few videos on. I think that's his name. My USW Flex 2.5 8-port PoE switch is pegged at 83% memory usage, so nothing is connected at the moment. Any ideas? I don't know. I never look at the memory in mine, so I really have no idea if that's a big deal. Let's look at the memory in mine and see if that's a problem. Well, here's the thing. Does it work? Because if it works and there's no problems to report, is it a problem? So let's throw mine in here. So this one is using 33% memory. How much does this one use? 16% memory. I don't know. The question is there something that's causing the problem or that you see as a problem? This one is seems kind of consistent. They all seem to be using about 16% memory. Seems too consistent. Oh, this one's using 33%, so this one's different. I don't know. I don't start looking at those until I think there's a problem. Yeah, you learn really quickly. You're only renting the usage of those devices until your rent is up and due. You don't own any of them. This is one of the reasons even MikroTik is, has its places, because they don't have a rental fee. Like this switch, some switches I would guess if it didn't work, I'm like, it's probably a licensing problem. At least with MikroTik, to my knowledge, there's not a licensing problem to make the hardware you bought function. Okay, it was last week's episode, and they had a good episode about SSD bit rot. I totally agree. You and Harvester, if KH isn't complete enough by itself, make it control KVM under the hood as well. Really just wanted to hear your professional opinion about it. Well, that's one of the things I looked at it going, they combine Kubernetes and KVM. What could possibly go wrong? So the episode was Security Now episode 1023, last week's episode, where they talked about SSD charge. Good episode. Steve dives deep into it. For those of you that go, I don't want to listen to a podcast, he has full transcripts you can just read. Yeah, Sophos and FortiGate, all their subscriptions for everything. How do you get around this error? Failed to load because unsupported SFP. I guess I would need to know what you're trying to plug an unsupported SFP into. I have not run into that at all if you're talking about UniFi or MikroTik. Either one of those seem to be quite good at allowing me to plug in whatever SFP I want. Data recovery recommendation for the hard drive. I don't know. Recover is the last one I used, and I don't do data recovery very often, so I don't have a recommendation beyond that one. I used it worked well. But it's been a long time since I did any data recovery. Just reset it with NetBoot. Yeah, that's another option. Oh, I think me and you grabbed it. Yeah, that's the one I grabbed it from the office. So yes, that's the same one you've seen. Use NetBird because the bird is a word. Yes. And self-hosting the controller. Yes. Will you run into problems if you have a 5G router setting up pfSense? You shouldn't. As long as it will hand over an IP address to the WAN, it should work. Better than Cisco firepowers that report 100% memory no matter what. Yes. NAS, or nothing as a service. I see no shirts. I like the nothing as a service. So you're doing MikroTik stuff? What made you decide to go that route, saying it as an avid UniFi and MikroTik user? Just a lot of people ask about it, and I think it's another affordable solution. And all I'm going to do is some basic videos. I am not the MikroTik guy. I will, matter of fact, link to people who have done more in-depth videos on MikroTik than I plan to do. Or you get, yeah, definitely Synology trying to change hardware into a subscription model. Any thoughts on reliability as SFP to RJ45 adapters? So hesitant to use them since their heat would cause more frequent failures and have native ports. Yeah, absolutely. I think the heat is a problem with them, and it can actually be a problem for the switch itself if you use too many of them. I believe the MikroTik, the 4-port one, has a warning that they gave, or it's in the notes somewhere. I believe it was MikroTik, but they tell you if you put too many of these in, you will overheat the switch. So yeah, I've not run into too many failures on them, but I've only ever seen them really used in Homelab. I don't really have any production use of those. Sonic is neat, but it's more tied to specific hardware. It's not like load any hardware. You have to get Sonic for a specific piece of hardware. I think that's my understanding of it. You can use Vios as a switching software, but I don't think that's an easy way to do it. Frigate, I think it's a neat project. It's not high on my to-do list at all. It's neat if you want to use it. I like that it keeps getting better, as I've been told, in terms of setting it up, but there's still some effort that goes into setting up. Oh, after you live your last date, I was able to snag a UniFi Cloud Gateway Fiber, deliver tomorrow. Awesome. Happy you got one. Finally moved my TrueNAS server to new hardware, but it's not using the new onboard Ethernet. Is there any way to fix this, or do I need a new NIC? It's weird to say that it's not compatible, because generally TrueNAS running Debian supports a massive amount of different network cards, and I would feel many of the MikroTik around there, but there are occasions when there are not. There's not really a lot you can do because it's an appliance, and patching and adding drivers to an appliance often gets overwritten. But if you're lucky, the next update will overwrite and have those drivers in there. Backblaze in the Homelab, good idea. I have another recommendation. Just want offsite backup for photos. I don't think Backblaze is bad at all. They're among the reasonably priced companies out there. But yeah, it's certainly becoming a challenge to back things up affordably. I believe, there we go. Share this tab instead. Yeah, if you have no monthly downloads, but let's say, and I think my videos and stuff are like 16 terabytes. I mean, backing up 16 terabytes is, $1,100 a year. I mean, I don't know how much data you had to back up, but at least they have a calculator here to be able to do it. There's also the TrueCloud. I did a review of TrueCloud. Actually, I got to look up the base. I didn't know if they had the pricing listed for this. So it's, how much is Storj? Storj is another option for it. So let's see, we had 16 terabytes on Storj. So 768 versus 1,100. So they're a little cheaper. There's another option, just to throwing it out there. I did a video on it if you're using TrueNAS. But I've never had a problem with Backblaze. Also, wish Ubiquiti release the UDM Pro with native RJ45 10 gig port. Quantum Fiber Zone T uses RJ45 for multi-gig. Huh. Interesting. There's a cute small business called ZFS Rent. That's kind of cool. They'll do the drives for you. Me and my friend were discussing this today about what if Tom started a data center and offered hosting for data. We were like, I know how to build this stuff. Should I just build one? And I would fully admit up front, because there was a local, it might still be vacant. I did a video on a vacant data center, and I don't know the status of that vacant data center today, but I think there might be some options where, even though I wouldn't have geo redundancy, and I'd say that, like, this place, here's cheap backups. Here's why these are cheap backups. Like, I'm only going to do single location redundancy. Use at your own risk, but here's the price. It's going to be a lot cheaper. I don't know if there's is there a play for that? Like, or do I build, can I get two colos that are local and make it reasonable? I don't know. I've debated about this because I think there might be some option. I don't know. We were just me and my friend were spitballing ideas because he's hosting my backups now. And, I'm going to host his backups and he'll host my backups. And that's kind of the whole discussion of we're VPN and doing buddy backup stuff, but as I'm going to have he's in here. It's my friend over at Railstream. So we want to talk about, like, what's a minimum viable, reasonably affordable. Don't get me wrong, for businesses, awesome. Let's go ahead and build a geo redundant on each side of the country. That's a great thing. But why not build something basic that for home users that are like, hey, let's make it affordable for home users, because you got to back it up. And I get it. Not everyone has easy access. Not everybody has Railstream as their best friend. They can go, hey, I got this. I can just go store it at my buddy's house. I am going to work on a buddy. I've done it before, but maybe I should title it Buddy Backup and talk more about it. Oh, that's right. And you have rack space. You could be my second data center. And you have a half empty NOC. We brought that up before. Matter of fact, you also know Railstream. So, and that's geo redundancy right there. We send we send one copy of our data to the bearded IT dad, and then right here in Detroit, we host the rest of it. And we'll just synchronize the two sites together. This is like a plan coming together. And 45 Drives will certainly be more than happy to provide us one piece, all the pieces of it we need. So I think this might be really interesting. Someone has a sync thing question. There we go. Sync thing question. Is there a way to skip certain jurisdictions to local, or if the sync as mirrored? The way you set things up in sync thing. Let me find it. There is the option in sync thing to build ignore patterns. So you can tell it to not synchronize something based on the matching. So there is a ignore option in sync thing that will allow you to do that. TrueNAS Faintooth had issues in some of your machines. Interesting. Data hosting sounds unfun and hard to make money. Yes and no. It depends. This is the problem. It's a race to the bottom to offer in a very competitive market space things like backups that are really large scale at the data center level that Backblaze does, which is awesome. But to offer a service for more basic users that actually eliminates some of the business needs and doesn't have certain aspects of it and forces people, to use look at the way like TrueCloud does this. They force you to encrypt it so they don't have to worry about certain encryption things. Might be interesting. I mean, it's spitballing ideas here. Yes, I need to do just a video about all of Mike's trains because it's crazy. Have you seen the new ZFS rewrite subcommand IX system sponsoring? Yes, I did. That is awesome. It will be a way to rebalance VDEVs after change. So yeah, that's an exciting commit coming to ZFS. Did you guys see the Rose server that they created? It's a neat device. I don't know. It's kind of limited in some use cases, but it's novel. Running storage A nodes is fun. That's another thing that me and Mike could talk about too, if we wanted to get into, if we wanted to get more into storage A. But I think the margins are really low for that. I have extra storage, so there's possibly a way to do it. Me and Michael have to have a conversation about that. Of how much is it worth it hosting storage A stuff? I all my testing with storage A seemed fine. I run into some quirkiness with it, and I talked to their engineers. They seem to have a hard time understanding my quirkiness, and the problem resolved itself. All I was doing is purging things, and it wouldn't purge. So it was just a weird problem. I didn't have any data retention or getting back problems. I just had trouble purging it. And it just took, eventually they went away. It kept telling me, and I couldn't see the data. It told me there was pieces of data there that nothing would list, but it would tell me they're there. And they weren't taking up but kilobytes of space. So they were some type of reference thing. And they thought I was being more serious about the issue. I said, no, this is not like a priority issue. This is I don't understand why there's artifacts here, but they don't seem to exist. You can't list them. You can't see them, but it would tell me there's like 13 files, but I can't find those 13 files. It went, and eventually it was 12 files. And then after a few days, it just went away. So I don't really know why. Rebalance, like add more disks to an existing array. No, when you add more disks to an existing array, then you need the rebalance. So the ZFS expansion allows you to add the disks, but the data is not on the new disks. The data is on the existing disks. Rebalance is a spread the data across all of those. I work as an electrician. How do you do 4-year inspections? I don't know. I definitely could be a customer of LTS Cloud Backup. You can either beat Backblaze or get close, but a lot of customers ZFS send. And that's what I would like to see, is if there's a way to do something efficient like ZFS send. Because to me, that would be kind of cool. I really don't understand the question about the electrical inspections, or if they're directed at me. eBay, sometimes if you can't find a place close to you to get some used servers, definitely check eBay. Wasabi prices are better than Backblaze. Are they though? Let me look. Let's look here. Do they have there we go. So pull these up. Okay. Where does it tell me the pricing? There we go. And we want this to be 16. So Wasabi, 1,300 a year for 16. Hold on. Change it. All right. 1,300 a year for Wasabi. 1,100 a year for Backblaze. And 768 a year for Storage. So Storage is the cheapest. Then comes Backblaze, and Wasabi is the most expensive out of these choices. I mean, out of these, if you look at Azure or Amazon or Google, they're obviously way more. But so Wasabi is more expensive than Backblaze. I do like Wasabi, the food. So yes. I had a problem with the way I didn't really like the ways the rules at the time. It's been a couple years since I looked at Wasabi. There was a lot of weird bucket rules because you could set permissions to the buckets, and this has maybe been changed. So I'm just saying what was happening when I tried them 3 years ago. It required you to have the list bucket feature, which I thought was weird. So even though the API key, I could tie the API key to one bucket for permissions, I had to allow it to list the other buckets, which I thought was annoying. There was a couple of weird things like that I ran into that I thought Backblaze handled better for S3 emulation, by the way. In Wasabi, you have to pay for the retention even if you don't use it. Ah. Yeah. But here's the thing. So Wasabi and Backblaze are both competing in a very similar way, and also trying to compete by saying, hey, we're roughly, and both of these are the same pitch, we're roughly 1/5 the price of the competitors. So that kind of shows how much different they're doing things. But earlier, as I said, doing this level of storage is also kind of a race to the bottom. It's a race to $0. And I've seen people speculatively saying Backblaze is having a hard time. It's also the people saying it, they are short sellers who do things like buy the stock, say bad things, and hope the stock goes down so they can short sell the stock and make money. So the people seem to be quite incentivized not to say nice things about Backblaze. So I don't know with any journalistic integrity if you can say that they're actually in trouble. I don't know that they are or are not, and it is what it is. You can say that maybe their stock price isn't amazing, but it's also not. If Backblaze just changed their name to Backblaze AI, their stock price would go up. Did that mean the company is actually adding value? Or is it just because people like to see Backblaze AI? And does that actually mean they're not in trouble anymore? or they're in different trouble? Something to consider on there. Something to consider when you say they're in trouble. I don't think storage is one of those exciting topics that people talk about a lot. I mean, it is amongst us people here that we're definitely excited to talk about storage. I think it's less exciting for people who trade stocks because their goal when you're a stock trader is to buy stocks that will go up and to the right infinitely until they've consumed all of humanity. And right now, I don't think storage is that thing. But I could be wrong. Lawrence AI Systems. There we go. We'll just add AI to my name. Now, I'm a privately held company. I have no publicly traded stock, but if I did, it would probably make it go up. And my also thoughts are, if I just called myself Lawrence AI, you would think less of me, so I will not do that. Your personal stock you put in me, your confidence you put in me may go down. But why is my question for this? So try comparing Juniper to UniFi, but why? What would I compare? The license fees? I mean, so we actually we did some work, and I thought about it, but it just doesn't. I It's kind of like, let's compare the Maybach to my friend's Toyota. There's no question if you're buying a Maybach or you're buying, a McLaren, do you even bother comparing it to the other things? Because of course it's a different vehicle. And let me go and throw some of the social posts in here. I have a picture of some switches. Where'd it go? Because we installed these for a client, but I didn't do any reviews of them. Because it's one of those, but why? Where are they at? Because they were a stack of Arista switches. There. No, that's not the right ones. Are they? These aren't Arista. Those are not Arista. Thought I had some Arista switches in here. Got a bunch of NetGates. Which ones were these? Doesn't look like Arista there either. Yeah, because the Arista ones say Arista on front. But I just was kind of laughing at the price difference because the Arista switches, here, these ones, here they are. So this was do I have it in the info? No. 705 ARIST. 705. Pull up a price list on these. Oh, good. They have them on discount. They have a bulk price. Let me try and find some less generic looking site. Shopping. So this is a rough view of the price, but this is but why? I wonder if the $28,000 switch compares to the $2,000 one that UniFi has. I mean, they're not exactly the same thing. But there's also upsells on licenses to these. Like some of the Arista View features have extra licenses to turn them on. Like there was some monitoring features that also were another upsell on licenses. But I mean, they're not in the same price category. A lot of them aren't. Now, some of the Juniper stuff is, but it's just a lot more expensive. You also pay for the instant scaling with some of these providers. That's actually probably a fair point. You have a lot of upfront cash to build any of these type of data centers. Yeah. If you build some of these data centers with storage, like what will the demand be? I don't know. And it's not like I can rack hard drives in a minute. So if a customer says, I'd like to store X data and X data exceeds your data, now you have a problem. Yeah, the other ones were FS switches. Yes, we've done some FS switches. I don't like them. They're buggy. 45 Drives does not do routers, but they do offer some, which I thought was interesting. Some of their boxes have Wi-Fi on them. On the Homelab ones, I thought that was kind of neat. Would it be okay to say UniFi is enterprise ready? Well, the fun part is defining what enterprise means. So enterprise is a marketing term, not a technical term. Yeah, that's what it's called, Cloud Vision. The on-prem Cloud Vision. Yeah, that's another upsell. After you buy our $27,000 switches, would you also like to be able to view them in a web tool? That also has a license fee attached to it. And that's the thing. Like everyone's like, oh, please review them. They have marketing companies. They have their own marketing arm, but I don't know that it's worth it for me to do the review. I don't know where the interest is in me doing the review. I know when we buy them, which by the way, even the buying process is way harder for some of those. You have to, we're a reseller for Arista. We're a reseller for Meraki. We're a reseller for Cisco. We resell all those. But, where's the level of interest people will have in them? I don't know. Why are they that much more expensive is like the only question that'll come up. Like if I did a YouTube video on them, someone go, well, wait a minute. It can do MC lag. It can do that. Well, cool. So can this MikroTik for way less. Now, difference is the support on the MikroTik is not as good as the support on Arista or Juniper, but does it need to be once you learn it? Once you set up a set of switches in MC lag, don't they just do it? And the answer is yes. That's the question my boss asked when I use it. Cisco Nexus 3K 10G SCP switches. I could have bought some random switches for less. Really interested in the power supply to data center. I don't know a whole lot about power supplies for data centers, so not my field of expertise. I did do a data center tour, and there's that. I give a tour where I have a guy who knows his stuff. He's the guy that put a lot of this. He manages all this. He manages all their data centers, and it's a fun video because he dives into a lot of details. But it is certainly not my field of expertise. I'd explain that UniFi is here for most businesses, that the person was stuck on, they say what, well, and that's the whole thing. What do they need? Like, I can deliver a pizza in a McLaren, but it's probably not an ideal pizza delivery vehicle, but it will deliver pizzas. Absolutely. I can go to the grocery store. Well, kind of. McLaren doesn't have a whole lot of space for storage, but I mean, it seems like a great car. I mean, there's plenty of exotic cars. I always like that as an example because they do lots of other things. They go fast. They corner better than my car. Is that what I need to go to the grocery store? Maybe. Some people think so, but I don't. There's times when you need high-end features, and we didn't buy those Arista switches for any particular reason. They're in a mission critical spot running 100 gig networking, and this client didn't mind paying an exorbitant amount for these switches for what they're doing. Is there a chance UniFi will allow renaming or deleting the default zones in a firewall? I doubt it. I don't have a problem with them. They don't bother me. So I think most people feel that way. I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe you don't like it being called whatever. I don't know. I'm not bothered by the default names. I find them fine. So I doubt they're going to allow it. Not saying because of me, but I think because most people are fine with the names. I don't think they're going to change them. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a feature they add later where you can rename them whatever you want. That just seems like the path to confusion a little bit, or at least for people who do consulting like me going, why did none of your network zones have the right names that I can make sense out of it? People do weird things. How about comparing Ubiquiti with x86 server, multiple NICs OS of your choice? x86 server for what? Like, I've already done comparison to PF Sensing Ubiquiti. What else would I compare it to? Because that, I mean, it comes down to the OS. It's not like you take Ubiquiti and because Ubiquiti is like the whole package. It's the software, it's the hardware, it's an ecosystem. So it's not like I can just drop in saying x86. I mean, Ubiquiti is based on ARM architecture, so it makes them a little different, and their software isn't transportable over, well, no, certain amounts of their software is, but all of their software, like their full firewall, is not transferable, to my knowledge, over to x86, not without a whole lot of re-engineering. Yeah, in a lot of cases, sometimes enterprise means 2 power supplies for redundancy. Let's go back to the MikroTik that has 2 power supplies for redundancy, but then wait for the next comment. But Tom, it has 2 power supplies, but they're not hot swap. If they're not hot swap power supplies, they're not proper. So there's that. So when UniFi Enterprise line is fully released, competitive prices, did you, as a company, explain to clients that you can get them for the same features of UniFi instead of Cisco Arista? Yeah, I mean, it's not like I have to explain it because not a lot of people ask me the question. They just say, please build me something that works really well. And so we build them something that works really well. Your average day-to-day clients don't stop and go, hey, I care about what brand you use. Now, if we're doing consulting with an internal IT team, that's different. But most of the time, the internal IT teams are coming to me with what they want to use and have me validate a solution. Sometimes they want me to choose a solution. It's a mix, but they're the difference between it. Like we're doing a project with a client who wants some Cisco firepower firewalls. That's what they went with. It's not what they want. That's what they bought. UniFi wasn't a consideration. UniFi is a consideration for the switching, but we are just kind of joking around with how much more expensive the UniFi, like they would love it if the UniFi firewalls would work because the Cisco ones, I think they spent like $40,000 per firewall and they had to buy 4 of them. So they like UniFi for saving money elsewhere, but they're used to the Cisco. It's what they're using at their data center. That's what they're sticking with. I helped IT with a friend. Helped an IT friend with UniFi Say he took over. They had a primary WAN named backup and secondary WAN named primary. Rules got very confusing. Yes, welcome to people naming things weirdly and causing mass confusion. Companies just do what they always do, and they want someone to blame, so they go with the expensive stuff, and they hope that the expensive stuff, that the guy that told them they needed it, the guy that took them out to golf and bought them a nice steak dinner, told them to buy the expensive thing. You got to remember, one of the huge factors that goes into the pricing of equipment is sales and marketing. That is if we could slice up a Cisco, there's a big chunk of that Cisco called sales and marketing. And that is part of the total cost of it. This is probably easier to recognize in the consumer brands because MKBHD, I remember he got some hate for this a number of years ago, but I thought it was an interesting video that I'm glad he made. He talked about why Beats headphones cost what they do, despite not having electronics in them that are far superior than some of their competitors, but they had a price that was a lot more. And it very much had to do with the fact that the marketing budget was so big for the Beats by Dre headphones. At the prices of MikroTik switches, they do not need to be hot pluggable. You can replace the whole switch. You can buy a dozen switches for what you paid for the Arista one. Forward planning here, Tom. If you get in with MikroTik, please advise them that they have enough 1 gig NIC options in the world they need more 1025. I think they know that, but yeah, I don't think you need to tell. I don't know that I'll end up with a conversation with them on it. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're going on about, but once we have electrical inspections, but they're not like all the time. So I'm not really sure what you're going on about there. You just got an oil change and tune up on your truck. When they ask what kind of oil I want, I responded with whatever you recommend, I will do, because I do my best work when my clients say the same. Yeah. OpenShift and OBS. Is there a commercial solution for homes with a couple computers that don't need a ton of backup storage, but lightning fast speed? Commercial solution for home. I don't. I mean, you can use SFP28 at home, so I don't know. I'm not exactly sure your question here, but if I know there's at least a lot of Homelab users that are undoubtedly in this live stream that probably have SFP28s at home. Oh, like a SAN? I mean, if you want SF, 25 gig speed, you are buying an expensive device. TrueNAS is really popular and will definitely handle it, but you are jumping up in price when you want to say, I'd like to saturate 25 gig. Is it possible? Yes. Is it expensive? Oh yeah. Yeah. Once you go into the 25 gigs, there's a price jump. It's because you need in coming back to like Mike, my friend who has Railstream, to get the performance out of his TrueNAS. He's got 768 gigs of RAM, and we use those Mach 2 drives. So it's 768 gigs of RAM and 80 drives is how it displays to be able to get performance out of it. And I mean, he bought the drives used. I believe they're around $7,000 or $8,000. I'm going to do a video on that soon about building a budget performance system, but budget performance is still 10 grand roughly to build out something that's not, I don't know, to build something that's not new and still performs is still doing it for less than 10,000 and getting good saturation. And by the way, I don't think his setup will saturate a full 25 gigs. It'll saturate quite a bit, but I don't know if it'll do a full 25. Yep. This is not, and by the way, commercial, for clients, yeah, the 1 terabyte TrueNAS systems, that's not uncommon if they really need really fast speed. You throw a lot of RAM to get it in there because as much as possible, you want things stuck in RAM. ZFS caches really well on RAM, works good. I don't have any interest in trying Weka because it's expensive. Even Linus said, oh, this is from a while ago. Hold on. I just grabbed the headline here looking at the price. Only $11,000 a month for Weka. Is that what I was trying to find the amount here? Weka small config, 54 terabytes capacity. Pricing from $32,000 per month. Yeah. Weka pricing is only $15,000 a month to do it in the cloud. So, yeah, cool, but not something I'm interested in. There we go. It's going to Weka your wallet for sure. I think UniFi will take over one day for most businesses, just like XCB and G2 virtualization for the so-called enterprise environment. Unless you manage stuff, automations, UniFi is great. I don't have any experience with it. I'd like to see the NVMe over Fabric get more popular and have support in TrueNAS for it. I think it's neat. I have not really messed with it. I don't have any clients that have that need right now, but that is where someone mentioned the MikroTik Rose server. That's where they're going with it. Is the MikroTik Rose server is supposed to be part of your NVMe over Fabric setup, which is pretty cool. TrueNAS has they do not have NS or NFS. It's not NFS over. They don't support NFS over Fabric. They do support RDMA NFS. If that's what you're talking about, I always thought it was NFS RDMA. But in the future, they talked about NVMe, the NVMe one. I've never looked at the tie-in. I haven't looked at motherboards in a long time, so I am out of the loop on that. But there's several other channels that are much more in the loop for motherboards. Uh, 25G is hard to come by, but use parts for TrueNAS scale. You can do 2K and get a good 10G performance. My pleasure being your broadcasting, sir. Thanks for the knowledge you spread. Off topic question: best Homelab server to install Proxbox with less than 10 VMs. I like some of the mini PCs, and I think the mini PCs are becoming more popular for Homelab because of their low power usage combined with their small footprint, low wattage, and works surprisingly well. Just saying hi, becoming a fan. Say hi to Miss Paulina. Minis forums A2. Yeah, that's right. That's another one that's becoming popular. A2. Actually, he doesn't have it's just A2, I think it's a model. This one. These little boxes here. I think they have, that's right, they have dual 10 gig. That's what makes them good. I like this. If I were to upgrade, I would really consider these because I like how small they are. When are you going to do a Rate My Homelab stream? Soon. People should email me, homelab@lawrencesystems.com. I need to organize like a place for all the postings to go, but yes. Ooh, shipping end of this month. Awesome. If someone came out with a crazy number of PCA slots, I could see doing an OpenWRT firewall PC-based switch for 10 gig. No. And the reason is what you run into, and someone, brain trust of all of you people on this live stream, because I can't remember the person's name. Who's the person that is building the board, a custom board for OpenWRT that can do 10 gig? It's on the tip of my tongue every time I say this, but I know the brain trust here definitely knows who this person is. He's got a YouTube channel, and I like it because he actually shows why you need things like vector packet processing and Tomazes, Tomazes. Maybe that's not the right person. Yeah, the guy from here, Tomaz Zaman. Okay. Yeah. It's a European name, so it falls out of my head easier, I guess. I think that's how that works. I can't remember. I have harder time remembering names that I speak less often. AM. I'm searching. It keeps pulling up there he is. So I want to make sure. I'm going to drop a link to it in here. But anyways, you can do 10 gig with, as he points out, all the details of exactly how it works, and how to make this work is a little bit trickier than you think, and why the router apps suck, all the different things. And it's just, I like what he's doing, but also I like that he points out how challenging doing this can be. And getting these to be fast isn't a matter of just buying 10 gig interfaces on there. It's all about using vector packet processing and other things. So yeah, he's got whole videos on it, and they're good. I've watched them. Yeah, I'm probably saying his name wrong. Yep, the 10 gig router project. Yep. I am simply a English only speaker, and I'll admit to maybe even not being great at English. I'm okay. I would not consider myself a top level English speaker. I don't speak any other languages, but definitely the Z is an SH sound. Okay. Tomash. So that would be Tomash. Got it. But either way, I left the link. I liked his videos. I watched him. He doesn't release a lot of them. That's why I don't remember. That's why I have a hard time remember his name. But I watched like, oh, this is cool. He was going through the vector packet processing. I watched some of them on this YouTube. I have a personal YouTube channel as well, and that's where I usually watch stuff. But nonetheless, check them out. Really cool to learn about how routers are made and some of the challenge. If you don't call everyone mate, you're not good at English. Yeah. There is that as well. But I've gone for an hour and a half, and I'm going to wind it down here. And thank all of you for joining. This was a great time. I will get off topic for a minute because I think I have maybe a couple things. Can I share these? I was see if there's anything interesting about no. I was at MSP GeekCon if I had any photos, but I do not. We played games, we did stuff. I was at MSP GeekCon. That event is where I was at. I did my talk. It was fun. But nonetheless, I'm going to wander off. It's time to go get some food, time to get some fresh air. And my voice is better than it was yesterday. I could barely talk, but it's still, yeah, still a little scratchy. I go to these conferences and I just talk way too much. It's fun. It's worth it every time, but I don't want to hurt my voice again today. So I'll stop here. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Have an awesome time. See you in the forum. See you around. Take care.